They show up as jokes that sting, silence that punishes, love that feels like control dressed in care. A red flag is not a mistake. It is a pattern. Not a bad day, but a repeated warning your spirit keeps catching, even before your heart is ready to agree. When respect becomes conditional, when your voice feels like an inconvenience, when you keep shrinking to keep the peace, that is not love. That is a signal. Red flags are not there to shame you. They are there to save you, to remind you that discernment is wisdom, and walking away is sometimes the bravest form of self-respect. Pay attention. Your peace, always know what comes first.
Hello, good evening, and this is a beautiful Saturday. How are you doing? And this year, it's all about healing. There's something that I made observed in the recent time, and that is the fact that the consciousness that healing is needed in our lives in this year 2026 is so popular now. So on the Young Women and Wives with Burdens and Blessings discussion platform, this year 2026, we are all about the healing. Everything that is required to perfect your healing is all we are discussing in the year 2026. And today we are looking at the topic recognizing the red flags, identifying problems. Well, you would say red flag is something that I know. Yes, it is one terminology that is so popular and common and widely used. And everyone, once the thought of red flag comes to mind, the first thing that people would say is, oh, red flag, that means problems. That is why we try to do what? To add that problem. So how do you identify problems? As we came in, we had a spoken word where we were talking about what red flag is. So I want to ask you this evening, or whatever time you are joining us and wherever you are joining us. My name is Rosemary Henry-Eze, and this is the Young Women and Wives with Burdens and Blessings discussion platform. What are red flags? What does red flag look to you? To you, how do you define red flags? Please join us in this discussion this night. And I have some things that I have here to reference. I said, what are red flags? I said, red flags is a warning sign. A warning sign that something does not feel okay. Is a warning sign that there is something to be done. There is correction to be made. There is, something that needs to be made right. That is what red flag is. And red flag can come in every circumstance and every situation. And red flag comes even from people and also from things. There are different ways by which we get red flags, or we actually become sensitive to red flags. But red flags, they are signs. Something that gives you a sign that there's something fishy about this thing. There's something that is not comfortable. That uncomfortable or discomfort that you feel within you about something, about happening, about whatever it is a red flag. So how do you actually recognize red flags, and how do you marry it with problems? This topic is one that is worth looking into, because in order for you to be able to, define your healing and work on your healing in this year 2026, you need to actually be sensitive and conscious enough to identify what red flags are, and when your emotion is trying to play you pranks. Thank you so much, Olabisi Rachel, for joining us this night, and welcome everyone to another beautiful discussion. So many things happen to a lot of us, and we either do not connect it to that feeling, that nudging that you get within you about that thing. So how do you now differentiate the nudging that is based on, that is trying to tell you to be careful or to be weary or to take a second thought or give a second thought about something, different from when your emotion is playing pranks. People say that a lot of times people overthink things. They overassume things. Because they overthink things, they tend to make an issue out of something that does not exist. But how do you know? What is it that makes you, that convinces you that this particular thing is a red flag? Before you move into that action or into that decision, before you take that step, what are the red flags that you are meant to look at? How do you actually recognize red flags? And with times, red flags have really changed. The definition of red flags has changed, and the way we are able to access red flags have really changed. Red flags is no longer about, so red flags are actually hidden in the sense that they are no longer most times you no longer recognize red flags from, bad behavior or bad action. And the reason is that you sense red flag from someone does not mean that person is a bad person. Doesn't mean that person is an evil person. I noted here, I said it is a behavior, a pattern or situation that signals something may be unhealthy. Yes. So before you decide to, take your decision, and just from that pattern or behavior that signals that something may be unhealthy, how do you clearly define that this is actually a red flag? So when something signals to you that is unhealthy or that is unsafe or that is harmful, that probably would bring you harm, these are what signs and signals that red flags, that comes along with red flags. And most times, as funny as it may, a lot of us have actually attributed red flags with things that are very dramatic, things that are very loud, but maybe someone's behavior and actions that are, expressed to us. However, most red flags have actually been found to be very subtle, very silent, in fact, very, very subtle, in the sense that they are not obvious. Sometimes they appear as if in the form of concern. They appear as concern. They appear as what we would term love. But they carry with it, manipulation. They carry with it unhealthy, choice of words, unhealthy expressions that could actually bring problem to our lives in the long run. So how do you actually, what the red flags that are hidden, in the way people behave towards you? Now, someone would say, someone would come to you and make comments, and that comment is laden with harmful, thoughts. The comment is heavy with, anger, with disdain. So red flags are no longer actions or expressions. They show up in form of disrespect. Lack of accountability is also a red flag. Lack of accountability is also what? It's also a red flag. So how do you actually identify those red flags that that you are seeing? Lack of accountability, like I said, is a red flag. Emotional disturbances, are red flags. When someone cannot, stay true to their words, they are red flags. How often do we attribute red flags to even acts of love, what we define as love? How often do we, dissect and define, red flags from acts of supposed acts of love? Red flags are very, very key, because when we are able to identify these subtle and non-dramatic red flags, we protect our peace. We are able to protect our peace. We're able to protect ourselves from harm. We're able to protect ourselves from what? From danger. We are able to consciously consciously live a healthy life. I made mention earlier that what we set out to do as an initiative in this year 2026 is that we heal from past hurts, and what we open new chapter of healthy living. I will open new chapter of healthy living. So what are the red flags? Can I ask a question like I asked earlier? What is red flag? What does red flag represent to you? To you as a person, what does red flag represent to you? Typically, what are red flags? What are the things that you see as red flag? Good evening, Glory Star. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. We do appreciate your presence. Thank you for joining us. So this evening we're talking about recognizing the red flags. So what are red flags and what do they represent? How are you able to identify them? Because red flags this night that we identified are what? Red flags that are problematic, and they are what? But they are subtle in appearance. They are not as dramatic as the ones that we know. They're not as dramatic as the one that we are used to. Because if someone let's say someone disappoints you now, you have an arrangement and someone disappoints you, and it's become a habit, it's become a lifestyle of the person. And before you go into any form of arrangement or agreement or whatever it is that you want to go into with the person, you would easily reference those acts, those repetitions that has happened in the person's, between you and the person. But now what happens when we have red flags that are very subtle? They are not as dramatic as the ones that we know. What happens? They are clothed in what? In things like the red flag that has to do with, for example, lack of accountability, like I said earlier. Disrespect is also a form of red flag. And they subtly and gradually birth problems that we at the end of the day will not be able to handle, or may not even be able to handle. So identifying or recognizing red flag is very, very, very needed in this journey of healing in the year 2026 that we are in. And as women, we tend to, because we are very emotional, we are way more emotional than logical, we tend to, fall prey into red flags, these subtle red flags. We fall prey to these subtle red flags. Often than not, we fall prey to these subtle red flags. He said, many red flags show up quietly, but over time and often they feel like smaller inner nudges, something about this that does not sit right. You have that feeling that doesn't sit right. I was sharing with a friend, I said there was something that if I had been able to understand, or if I had learned that this was a red flag, something that happened to me about 21 years ago, that if I had known that this was a red flag and I had understood it as a red flag, that I would have, even though I was young, I would probably have, taken a step back and we had a rethink about it. And one irony of life about this red flag is that they do not, by the time they start to show, most of them takes years. Take years to show. And when they start to show or rear its head or ugly head, their seed to show, we are distraught, we are confused, we don't really know what to do. And then seeking help becomes very, very important. But this night, we are just trying to tell you that, okay, you might have had the ones that had actually brought you pain, and that you are sitting back and you say, oh, if I had known that this was a red flag, I would have done something about it. But before you go into further issues or problems because of these red flags, we're beginning to use this night that, identify what these red flags are and how they now appear. They no longer appear in dramatic or displays or actions. They appear in very subtle and well-clothed form. lack of accountability, like I said, disrespect, dishonesty, red flag. Boundary violation, red flag. I said to someone recently, I said that I was saying to person, I said, as the most part of my adult life, I've always come across to people as difficult and firm. And it got to a time I began to become disturbed by it. Because I felt that a lot of people were saying, oh, Rosemary, you are hard, you are rigid, you are firm. Once you say this, you stay put to it. But, and for a long time, it really disturbed me. But people didn't know that it disturbed me. Yet, I found that I could not, bring myself to go against the values that I stand, or rather, I stand for. Because I sat down and I found out that most of all those things were actually born from values that I had created for myself. So, red flags, what may be termed as red flag for some people when it comes to you, might not be red flags. However, you have to be careful that it's not something that will actually harm. Now, don't get me right. I don't say hurt. I say harm. Because harming someone is much more grievous than hurting. People can hurt because you don't agree with them. That is fine. But when whatever it is that you do to people becomes harmful, becomes a harmful thing, then you have actually overstepped that boundary. And then we also have red flags that have to do with emotional and psychological, and even that poses moral danger. I wrote here, I said, red flag does not always mean someone is evil, but it does mean attention is required. So what are the red flags? Not just only in people, because most times we are quick to judge other people and make ourselves look perfect. But red flags, even in you, over time, during that period where I was having those, disturbed, when I was disturbed by, the complaint, but people were complaining about some, my they're saying that I was a bit firm and difficult, and I will go back and have have series of reflective questions, ask myself, talk to myself, ask myself, sometimes when people would say that you may not be able to really assess yourself, but really there's something that I've come to know, that when you are doing something that is bad, you might not be you might not 100% know that what you are doing is bad, but to a larger percentage, there will be this inner nudging that whatever it is that you are doing is 80% not okay. So you can now leave the 20% to people's assessment. But when you are doing something that is not okay, you will know that this thing. So I said here, we live in a time where unhealthy patterns are normalized. Red flags today, like I said, are subtle, emotional, deep, and spiritual. So when you recognize the thing is that when you are able to recognize the red flags early, it is an act of wisdom. And it is not that you are paranoid. It is an act of wisdom. Thank you so much, Dr. Merit. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you. So it is an act that what is an act of wisdom. It is not actually that you are being rebellious. No. Like I said, red flags have evolved. Red flags have evolved. In fact, abuse and dysfunction no longer look or sound loud. In fact, abuse and dysfunction, they no longer look violent. Yes. The red flags that come in the form of abuse and they are no longer violent. Just by one comment. I saw a video earlier this week and I posted it on my WhatsApp status. And this woman was saying, she's a pastor, she was saying something. She said, have you ever had to feel, if you ever feel like having a post up and then you post and the first 10 people comment, oh, beautiful, I'm so blessed by your post, I love your post. And then one person will just come up and say, now, don't get it wrong. The person did not make any comments. But 10 other people have made comments and say, oh, I love what you're doing. You're doing good. And then one person just come out of, and just do, before you know it, you pick that, and you start to check and question. Because that for you is a subtle red flag. that, which doesn't speak much. The person is trying to create for you. You now start to access and wonder and assess and say, oh, what does that mean? Does it mean Because in our own African culture, is a question mark. It's loaded with a lot of things. And you start to wonder, oh, is it the clothes that I'm wearing? Is it what I said? What is that? What does this person mean? And then you forget about what the good comments that the other 10 persons have given. So emotional red flags are no longer, they no longer look violent, but they are very subtle. So this example I gave is another one form of subtle red flag that will actually create problem, because as soon as the person is wrong, everything about you becomes disorganized. You begin to question, you will now spend time wondering. So how do you recognize those red flags? You are able to recognize those red flags and I know that this person, is either out to create a tornado in your life or to create a problem. And create this problem and make you uncomfortable. So settling and concentrating on the 10 would help you, because you have been able to identify that this is a subtle red flag, a manipulative and emotional key in form of a red flag to destabilize, that joy that you felt, or the joy that the other 10 comments have brought your way. You understand? And another thing is that also, red flags that are subtle red flags, they come as neglect. Yes, neglect. They come as neglect, silence, they come as emotional manipulation. Now, most times, emotional manipulation, you see, someone you keep telling someone, oh, this thing that you are doing to me, I do not appreciate it. Oh, you did this, and you said it the first time, you've brought it to the person's notice the second time, you brought it the third time, you brought it the fourth time, and then you find that the person is so easy. It is much easier for the person to just say, oh, I'm so sorry, forgive me. Yet, there is no change. The next time there is a repetition of such a thing, those are red flags of unhealthy people. Those are red flags that you should look out for. Most times, because of the kind of mind that an individual may have, you feel that when somebody tells you, oh, I'm so sorry, please, and the person is crying and the person is all emotional, you feel that let me forgive them. The person is apologetic, or the person has realized their mistake, But the next time, or maybe the thing just lies low for a while, and then the next time the person just brings up repeat the behavior again, and it becomes a consistent, behavior to the extent that it becomes a pattern that you know the person with. That is a red flag that should never be overlooked. I worked in a place some years back, and something had happened through me. Something had happened through me because I had responded to a scenario. So I gave the first time, and then when the thing happened again, I responded the second time. So then it didn't happen. Something happened the third time. I was pissed. I was offended. Someone offended me, and then two different persons creating this offense and all that. But I remember one thing somebody said. Something someone said. One of the workers said something. He said, see, don't mind Rosemary. Oh. This Rosemary. Rosemary cannot change. She has done it the first time. She has done it the second time. She will continue to do it. She doesn't see it as something that is bad. Now, what happened? It has to do with, my job as a quant surveyor. It has to do with, the way I responded to a contractor who was asking me for extra. Let me put it that way. And asking me to do what I should do. I know that we both know that it's illegal. But my response was I wasn't matured enough to know how to respond. I responded with irritation and anger. And that happened to be the way I actually had been responding to situations or things like that, occurrences like that. But when this guy said this thing, you know, I got home and every other thing that had happened were not ringing in my head. But that statement that guy made. And I said to myself, I said, ha, this is not good though. Rosemary, this is not good. So I said, oh, that means, you know, I need to change, so to speak. You understand now? Because it has become, is a red flag that is subtle. That means that I do not have come to not have control over the way I respond to issues, or the way I even respond to whatever it is. Yeah, people will always have their do side. People always do you wrong. But I now came to realize that it is the way you respond to. So my own red flag was covered in the way even though I was justified in what was done, and you know, but the way I responded, it has not become the way of responding. It has not become a red flag that was used now to define me. So red flags are no longer dramatic. They are what things that have become pattern, that have become the way someone expresses themselves. So which means that over time, what the person said that caught my attention, and how you said it was that means that over time I can never change, because if I don't take it into cognizance, that is the way I will always respond and react to things that do not sit well with me. So I decided to do what? I said, no, this is not help, this is not good. And this will go a long way. Only God knows where this guy will be. And then they will say, oh, Rosemary. In fact, it got to a time that because the company is a very big company, other projects, other people have heard of me, of Rosemary, at other projects that I was not even a part of, or a part of their team. But you know, somebody will just come and they did not come to learn to understand me. No, they came with the information that they had been given. And they came, and then you see a contractor being aggressive and everything towards me. You know, I had to question, please, do I know you before? What is all this? But then eventually I will not have someone at the end of the day, you know, madam, this is not what they told me is different from what I am seeing. And I'll tell the person, see, what if they tell you that I will react if you ask me to add extra to your job? Yes, I will react. I said, but I will never cheat you. I will never reduce your quantity. Because what some of them found out is that when they even do that, their quantity, when they come to me, my quantity will be higher than their own. So these red flags, I said something about once red flag, that's the red flags that has evolved. So we are talking about abuse and dysfunction. No longer, I said, no longer or always look loud or silent. Many red flags now show up as silence, neglect, and emotional manipulation. For those of us who are married, we know how often we emotionally manipulate our spouses. And then because to us, we believe that, you know, we believe, especially in Africa, we believe that she's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. Especially for the women. You know, the other will believe that she's not going anywhere. She will not, you know, especially when a woman, you know, already has children. Oh, she's not going anywhere. And then you continue to take advantage of that, and you continue to what? You know, so those red flags that show up in those form are very subtle, and we must be conscious to keep ourselves and our mind healthy. Red flags in the form of silent communication. I will say something that when I was running the program, when I was in school here, I did I ran this program, project management, and we had there was part of the program that had to do with, you know, understanding your personality type. And I found out that we have challenger, is it avoider, and all those, you know, challenger, you know, those things. But I just remember my own. I think I brought the books out, and I found out that I fall under the challenger description. And the challenger is that, a challenger can be very, once they are certain or sure of what it is that they stand for, they stand by it. But for me, you have to relearn that as a project manager, you understand that you must be able to be in between. You cannot be, you cannot avoid, you cannot be a challenge, you cannot be all the impossible. You must be able to do what? Management of resources also has to do with management of even people in form of resources. And that something that began to make me take up a new attitude of always listening to people. Okay, say your own. And at the end of the day, when I now found out that if I'm not okay with this, I will tell you, oh, this thing, I'm not happy with it. So because I would not want to be manipulated, neither will I want to manipulate you. So red flags that come in form of what? Silence in communication. So there are some of us that once we are offended, we just keep mute. And most times is a red flag, quite all right. But one thing I have come to understand is that people resort to that state when they probably have a prior experience of not being listened to. So because in a work environment, for example, of not being listened to, even in relationships, even in marriage, and even in relationship as a parent-children relationship, people resort to that state. Recently, I had an issue with my son, my first son, and I told him, I said, see, this, and I aired my opinion. I told him what I felt and how I felt, and I told him, I said, this is not okay. I am not okay with it. And then they said, you quickly said, I'm sorry. I said, no, you are trying to manipulate me. It's only your father that can do that. Don't manipulate me. No, you have not even got time to think about what I've said. I just saw that as a red flag. I said, no, this boy wants to because I have something I want to collect from her. Let me just quickly say sorry. I said, no. So I called him. I said, don't be quick to just jump and say sorry. I said, you have not had to go and sit and think about what you have done. We are just discussing it, and you are like, I'm sorry. I said, no, that does not mean that you are sorry. I said, because until you sit and reflect on it, and see what you did and what the scenario you think about it, until you do that, you will repeat it again. So go and sit and ponder upon it. So most times that silence in communication may come as red flag. Yeah, but like I said, people exhibit that in a situation where they know that they will not be heard. Thank you, sir. Engineer. Hi, how are you, sir? Engineer Joseph. Good evening, sir. Thank you. Okay, Engineer Joseph said emotional manipulation. Yes, sir. Thank you. Emotional manipulation is a red flag, and it's so common. And one thing I want to say is that, in as much as we generally think that men emotionally manipulate women, but I found out that women are on the high side of using emotional manipulation. So emotional manipulation is a very, very strong red flag that if it is not, handled, will bet so many. The thing is at the end will be resentment. There's something I noted that I said, emotional withdrawal is not peace. Consistent silence often hide unresolved anger, resentment, or control. So when we are talking, that it will always have. So when somebody, that's what most times, if you're in a relationship, whether parent, child, husband and wife, brother, sister, when somebody is so quick to keep quiet for you, it's a red flag that there is a problem. Attend to that problem. Don't let it go. Attend to it. It's a red flag. So red flag, we're not only talking about, and that doesn't mean that the person is a bad person. That doesn't mean that that person is an evil person. Because human nature is engulfed in imperfection. We will only have to work out, to what would be perfect for our what continued, relationship and existence. And I said, now, as I also said, I said, communication reveals the health of any relationship. Just like what I said now, it is important that where any red flag that is there, hidden, that is no, you make sure that you look at it. Now, power, control, and boundaries. You see, one of the red flags I see as that parents exhibit, parents especially, is that this red flag that they feel that is subtle in the area where they try to take out their childhood, inadequacies, childhood, trauma. Childhood trauma will always hide in the way you as a parent respond to whatever it is your child does. I am telling you, to always express and show itself in the way you respond to what your child does. Sometimes when I scream, when I shout, I express myself and I scream at my children, especially in the area of how they spend money. So most times I'm so angry. I'm telling my children, you people should learn how to manage money. No, who even gave me money, Seth? Did I know anything about? Did I know anything called savings or pocket money? So I become very, very angry and pissed that they are just spending their pocket money without structuring or planning it well. And I'm saying, I have taught you people, I've done this, but because when I look back, I say, oh, who even gave me money? Do I even know what it's called? Do I even have was I opportunity to have pocket money? So red flags that is clothed in trauma, trauma expressions. You have to be careful. Identify this problem, this red flag of silence or innate or childhood trauma in you, and try to do what to control it before it becomes a full-blown problem. Before it becomes a full-blown problem. Now we talk about boundary, emotional exhaustion as there are we talk about people these days, we the red flag of not wanting to, of aloneness, let's say, of loneliness, loneliness. I don't know, but I will see this as a red flag if one don't know how to balance and manage it. Because there's someone like me that's wanting to set boundary. Now boundary, that does not mean you are trying to avoid disrespect. Like last week we talked about boundary, and I said boundary does not mean that you are building a wall. Boundary means that people know what you stand for, what you are, is your standard, your values are, and they actually relate with you based on that. However, you can see how people who themselves don't have what they stand for, and they express, things to you, and those things hurt you because you find out that they are not healthy for you. So when we look at it, and one of the things is that and red flags that come in form of actions that drains you. Actions that drains you. When I remember something that used to happen when I was young, when my mom, when you do something wrong and she would not ask you. that time, then you know most of us will probably have that experience. And then she comes to ask you, she wakes you up in the night, and then you know you are sleeping, your mind, everything is sleeping, and you are woken up around 1 a.m., 2 a.m. to be asked, you know, question, and the question like, but if you don't know what I did, how come you now counted it as offense? So red flags that you know that drain people. You continue to ask the question. So tell me what you did. You understand that? Tell me what you did. Those, you know that thing that does not even, it's not, doesn't look harmful, because everyone is trying to ask you to explain yourself, so that you will not say that they are the one defining your offense. You understand? Oh, so tell me what you did. So red flags come in that form where they emotionally drain the other person, and you know bring about emotional exhaustion. They bring about emotional exhaustion. I don't know if anyone has any contribution to make. Please kindly drop your contribution. Thank you, Engineer Joseph, for your contribution. So they bring emotional exhaustion, and you are like, what is all this? You know, what is all this? And then you know, it also happens in marriage relationships. It happens in marriage relationship, especially marriage relationship where domestic violence is rife. And you know, where you see men who treat their wives like that they are children, and then they ask them so they know men, they flog their wives, you know, and deal with them, flog them, so to speak. So you see, it is very rife in things like that. So you'll be able to identify all these things that is explosive. Those are red flags that we do when you continue to experience emotional exhaustion. Over time, you become drained, and that can kill your morale, can kill your confidence, and will open you up to, you know, people's control and manipulation. So emotional drain is one major, you know, red flag. Bless me. Sorry. You understand what I'm saying now? So we have to be careful in the way we handle such. And another thing is that you do know that gaslighting, when you see that some people are very good with gaslighting. Gaslighting is a red flag, that there's a problem, or that the problem is hidden somewhere. When somebody is continuously gaslight you, it's a red flag that there's problem coming up or hidden somewhere. When someone is always dismissing you, you know, dismissive behavior, you know that those are things are not red flags. You know, typically what we see as red flags, but those are the subtle red flags that exist. You understand? Another red flags that is also this thing very subtle is blame shifting. You know, now blame shifting does not mean that excuse me, someone cannot, because it is very possible that you are actually right in a particular thing, and someone keep you know doing something and making accusing you, and then you are raising that problem up, and you're saying, oh, this person does this person does this, and then they say, hey, so you want to tell me that you have nothing that you contributed to this thing that happened now. You know, I've heard a lot of, you know, motivational speakers say that if in everything that happens you are always right, is a problem. I disagree. I disagree, because it is very possible for you to do right by people and people will not do right by you. Very possible. And in explaining what happened, you know, but when you are explaining what happened, people now see that, oh, every time you are always saying that people did this and you never do anything, and they now say that, oh, that means that you are never wrong. You are never wrong. Everybody's wrong. No, No, if you are explaining, oh, this is what happened. This is what happened. You're trying to, and you find out that, in everything that you narrated, there was no way that you went out of order, but the person went out of order. And they say, okay, so you mean you did not do anything wrong? That person too you must have done something that will make the person. No. So if you're asking someone to be accountable, and then the person sees it as you being shaped, blame shifting, no, it is not the same. However, there are some people that, they always, shift blame. There's something that I do. I have come to learn to do, and that is me now in my marriage now. When something happens and I sit down and I first will ask, I say, okay, what happened? I will start replaying it to myself. I say, okay, what did I do? What did he do? How did he do this and that? So I might eventually not decide to overlook it. Especially when I find out that, there are some, then all this I've said, I didn't really do wrong. So I will overlook it and move it aside. And the reason I'm moving it aside is because I am known to have this personality of a challenger and all that. I have one of also my strongest this that I have kind of moved towards is what? Avoidance. I'm telling you. Because the thing that anytime they now hear that something happened about Rosemary, they say, I know it has to be the culprit, the problem there is Rosemary. So I will just keep quiet. But the red flag that comes in form of gaslighting, dismissiveness, blame shifting, those are very, very sensitive red flags. That is, so these are, you have to be able to identify the red flags that are embedded, that have problem embedded in them, and how to take safety. I also said, there is also this red flag of control disguised as care. It happens in marriages. It happens in parents-children relationship. It happens in brother-sister relationship. When my son clocked 18, I've always told them, I said, see, I will not be, there are some things I will withdraw myself from, and I will allow you to explore and use the ones that you have learned. Last year on this discussion platform, we had the person of Mrs. Bose Olushola Obasa take us on, I think that topic was about legacy, how to help our children and everything. And she said she mentioned the 4 stages of parenting. She mentioned the 4 stages of parenting. Where you have the first, okay, you are nursing, you are nurturing. Then you get to a part where you are guiding. Then we get where you are just a counselor, an advisor. So if you don't understand your place and everything, before you know it, you will begin to express, what you think is care. But it is control and manipulation. I said control disguised as care. There's this ideology that we run in Africa. Let me put it that way. That where a spouse, for example, let's say a husband, is always on. You are quick to check your spouse's phone. You are quick to do this one. You are quick to do this. You pick. You say, how will I? And they have so advertised it and popularized it, and that they have now made this sound healthy. The question I keep asking is this: why will I go for your phone? She means your phone. Why will I go for your phone? And what am I looking for in your phone? Because let me say, what I want to say is that if you are not trying to create problem, what will you be going to scrutinize and search your spouse's phone for? I don't see it as love. It's not, you say if you have a spouse that is not jealous over you, it is not love. No, sir. It's a big red flag. No, ma, it's a big red flag. Love does not have to be jealous, because one thing is that jealousy. Well, now we Christians will say, God said He's a jealous God. No, that it is not in the way we human beings define or act or take jealousy. Because even God that said that He's a jealous God, He also is the same God that gave us decisions. Say, I lay before you life and death. Choose. So God does not impose. God does not manipulate. So let's try to take that, make that clear. So if you say that you love or care for someone, you should not be controlling and manipulative, and you are looking for what is, as we say in Nigeria, what is not looking for you. Because that is a huge red flag. And why it is a red flag is that, when you continue to do that, when you continue to do that, and you are consistently checking your spouse's phone, one day you will read meaning to text that does not hold the meaning that is in your heart, or that you have been looking for. You will come across a text that does, yes, that's the truth. You will come across a text that does not hold the meaning. Let me give you an example. Working in construction industry and working amongst, there have been on projects where I'm the only woman. And one funny thing is that, when you cannot be fighting men. No. What I've come to understand, that if you work with, in a male dominated, or depending on the gender, you will have to try to learn how to work with them. The same goes for a man who is working in a female dominated environment. You have to learn to work with them, because you cannot be fighting people every time. So and most times I get this one, I have different pet names from all, even both laborers or carpenters or iron benders. So you will hear sweetheart, you will hear honey pie, you will hear my darling, my love. The only I'm just telling you. So initially, before I understood that is one of the things that display on you can come across on this thing, I was like, what's that? But for how long? How long would I come to that? So what I did, I would just smile. I'll say thank you. And some other say, please, let your love come with money, not without this. Just and then everybody moves on and move away. So now, when you now find someone that would say, hey, my love, or my sweetie mente. There's not one that is sweetie mente. Sweetie mente, how far now? What is happening? How are you? And then my spouse sees it and say, who is calling you sweetie mente? Something that does not really have anything hidden. So by the time we continue to do that, you before you think that is care. Oh, you are protecting what is yours. You are not no. That is what red flag. That if care is not taken, it begins to build. You will start to imagine. You will start before you know it, you will begin to restrict your spouse or whoever it is, your child, from being normal and living a healthy life. And then, if care is not taken, ideas will start coming to your head that is not even going on, and harm is not far. So, red flag, that control that disguises as care is a red flag, a major red flag. Is a major red flag. Spiritual. I said something. I said monitoring movements, finances, friendship, or spiritual choices under the name of love or concern is a serious warning sign. That's what I mean. It's a serious warning sign. Another one is a boundary violation. Repeatedly ignoring personal limits, consent, or emotional needs reflects disrespect and entitlement. I was sharing with a friend recently on this. I said when I came into here to study, we were made to do a compulsory course, a compulsory subject that has 0 units. 0 units. But I'm speaking on this boundary violation, respect, ignorance, personal limits, consent, and all that. Now, I want to speak on consent. We're meant to do this course. This course has 0 units, but it's compulsory. And we're given a timeline to do. If you don't do it, you will be taken out of the program. So if you like, say you have paid school fees, that's your business. You'll be taken out of my own school fees was about $15,000. You'll be taken out of the program straight, and they go home. So this particular course is on sex, just sex, sexual sex, so sexual intercourse, sexual agreement, sexual whatever. And I was telling this my friend, I said it had 64 pages, slide 64, with pictures, listening to explain in detail what consent means. And one of the things, because those are the things that make, and it was majorly imposed on international students. And one of the things that, because one of the things I found that under consent is that even if you people, the person agreed, and it has nothing to do with gender, both men and women, even if the person agreed, and you get to where you want to, you are pushing yourself and everything, you are told to be reading body language and asking questions. Should I continue? Are you still okay with this? Should I continue? If was the person, then reading the person's body language and looking into the person's eye to say, if the person, if you ask should I continue, and the person does not give you immediate answer, withdraw. Because silence is consent. It does not mean consent too. Silence means that the person is not, few seconds of silence is so that the person is not giving you consent. You withdraw. Even if your listener read crescendo, withdraw. Because if eventually you continue and you do this, the person can come back tomorrow and say you raped the person. So what am I trying to say? Consent. So you can imagine that. So these are even. So you have to be careful in such a situation. So another thing I said, spiritual or moral manipulation. That one is very rife. I said here, using faith, religion, or moral value to silence, dominate, or guilt others is a modern day dangerous red flag. That one, we all know that. Using religion or faith. There's something I have come to settle. And because that is how I've come to live my life. The thing is that I try to, as much as I respect, give honor to men of God and everything, you understand? I try to deal with you as an individual. I try to deal with you as an individual. Because in dealing with you as an individual, it helps me give excuses sometimes for your shortcomings. But when you now want to come and start imposing, you are this, most times, because I would not want to, I wouldn't want to be verbal or want to have history of having any altercation with you, I will withdraw, and I will withdraw silently. That is why I'm saying that in a place I've actually taken up more of an avoidance, because I'm saying, this person, let me not do this. You understand what I'm saying now? So when you identify red flags, like we said, all those silent, subtle red flags, gaslighting, these are the things that in the long run create huge problem. Huge problem. They will create huge problems. And I want to, before we round up, we just have a minute, I want to put in something. I just want to say something here. I said a red flag does not always mean someone is evil, but it does mean attention is required. So you can also actually help someone when you start observing some red flags, with the person. It doesn't mean that person is bad or that person is not good for you if it's in a case of relationship sometimes. But when something has become considered, call the person to say, sorry, see, this thing is consistent. Can you please work on it? And let me say something to you. It is not you that will help the person work on it. If the person tells you, please help me work on it, that's another red flag. That's manipulation. Bring that shortcoming to the person and step back. Let the person go and have a think about it. If they don't see it as a problem, then there can never be solution. Until you see something, you as an individual see something as a problem before solution can actually be achieved. And most often than not, those things become habits that have been learned over time. Because habits are like glue, or like this, a glue or magnet. they attract and they keep attracting and then they pile up. So you the same way all those things were attracted and piled up, is the same way you have to what gradually patiently work on until they fall off. So it's not a magic, and you are not the person to heal the person. The person has to realize that this is a problem and that this problem needs to be attended to. So recognizing red flag is that you have to be able to recognize the ones that are subtle and not just the dramatic ones. And because these are what are problem bound, they will create problem. And I said ignoring red flags often leads to deeper harm, while acknowledging them creates room for wisdom, boundaries, and healing. If you ignore red flags, if you see this red flag people and you ignore it, don't forget I said it doesn't mean that the person is a bad person. Like I gave an example of what my own red flag was that I'm gradually consciously working on now. If that guy did not raise it, you understand now? He raised it as a form of antagonism, but I picked it as a form of what needs to be worked on. And I went to work. So that is what I'm trying to say. So if the person whose shortcoming red flag is being picked does not pick it as something that needs to be worked on, it will remain. So you are not the one to help the person work on it. Please, let's stop this. Please help me work on. No, it's no. You as an individual will seek for help. And some of these things it's not even the person that is closest to you that will help you. One, you have to realize that you have to seek for help, or how do I go about this? Some things, if it's a behavioral thing, that you have to be conscious to work on. As soon as you see it come up, it will not disappear overnight. It will keep working on it, But do not try to think that you are the one that will help or heal the person. No, but that doesn't mean that you cut a relationship. Now, don't go into full relationship. That's just my own counsel. Because if the person has not worked on that red flag that you saw, that problem that you saw, and then you become intimate or whatever with them, they will not want to work on it again. The person will not want to work on it again. So now I said, simply put, a red flag is truth trying to protect you before damage sets in. That's just it. So that red flag that you have seen is actually truth trying to protect you before damage sets in. I want to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you, Osakwe, Glory Star. Thank you, Dr. Merit. Thank you, Engineer Joseph. Thank you, Mommy Olabisi. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. There's some people I'm not actually seeing, but thank you for joining us on today's discussion. And until we come your way next week, next week, Saturday, we are going to be having the person of Mr. Sam Adeoye, rather, join us on the program. We'll be talking about the power of no. Now, I said earlier that we are trying to take it layer by layer. Our healing is going to be layer by layer by layer. Because you have to heal in layers. You can't just start from the root and uproot. You can't, because the layers are there. So layer by layer. Last week we treated a topic, that has to do with healing. That this we're also treating another topic that will help your healing. Because if you're able to identify red flag and protect yourself from problems, you have that truth that saves you or protects you from problem before or damages before they set in. Your healing will take a toll. Will take a toll that will lead to your wholeness. Until I come your way next week, Saturday, my name is Rosemary Henry-Eze, and I say, stay blessed. Bye.